Ethiopia, officially called as the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, is a landlocked country in northeastern Africa. Covering a total surface area of 1.136 million square kilometers, it is the 10th largest country on the African continent and 26th largest country in the world. Ethiopia is approximately 4.2 times as big as New Zealand, 2.5 times as big as Sweden, and roughly 1.6 times as big as Myanmar. While Algeria is approximately 2.1 times as big as Ethiopia. And Canada is 8.8 times as big as Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the 12th most populous country in the world and the second most populous in Africa, after Nigeria, and with a total population of over 120 million, it is the most populous landlocked country in the world. Ethiopia shares its borders with 6 countries which are Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, Sudan and South Sudan. Ethiopia is one of the 4 countries located in the geographical area popularly known as the Horn of Africa. The other 3 countries are Somalia, Eritrea and Djibouti. Addis Ababa is the capital and largest city of Ethiopia. More than 5 million people live in Addis Ababa, and with an elevation of 2,355 meters, it is the highest-lying capital city in Africa. Ethiopia is an incredibly mountainous country. In fact, around 70% of Africa's mountains are located in Ethiopia. This is particularly because of the Ethiopian highlands, which is a rugged mountainous plateau region, covering much of Ethiopia and central Eritrea. The highlands are divided into northwestern and southeastern portions by the Great African Rift Valley. Ethiopian highlands are home to Africa's 80% tallest mountains. The tallest peak is Ras Dashen, which is 4,550 meters in altitude, and is the tallest mountain peak in Ethiopia. Ethiopia was a monarchy for most of its existence. Damat was one of the first kingdoms to originate in Ethiopia. It existed from the 10th to 5th centuries BC, in the region that exists today as part of Eritrea and northern Ethiopia. In the 1st century AD, the Aksumite kingdom rose to power. The Kingdom of Aksum was the first to use the name of Ethiopia as a nation as early as the 4th century AD. The Aksumite Empire at its height extended across most of present-day Eritrea, northern Ethiopia, western Yemen, southern Saudi Arabia, and Sudan. The city of Aksum was the center of the kingdom, and it was located on the main trade route between the Roman Empire and the ancient India. The Aksumite kingdom lasted until 940 AD and a new dynasty took its place, which was the Zagwe dynasty. Although time periods may vary, Zagwe dynasty started ruling parts of Ethiopia from the 10th century and lasted until 1270 AD. Various other kingdoms ruled certain parts of Ethiopia during this period. The Kingdom of Damat ruled parts of western Ethiopia while the Sultanate of Shur ruled small parts of central Ethiopia. Both kingdoms lasted from the 10th century to the 13th century AD. The Zagwe dynasty and other small kingdoms were overtaken by the Solomonic dynasty in 1270 AD, thus establishing the Ethiopian Empire, which lasted until 1974, when the military overthrew the monarchy. Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that had maintained its independence from foreign powers during the course of its history. Foreign powers were never able to colonize the country entirely. In 1895, Italy invaded Ethiopia, but its forces were defeated by Ethiopian forces. Although Italy was defeated, it occupied a part of Ethiopia that is present-day Eritrea, and Ethiopia became a landlocked country. In the 1936, Italians again attempted to colonize Ethiopia, and this time it was a partial success. Italy succeeded in occupying the country, but few parts of the country still remained out of their reach. Italy's rule lasted until 1941 when Ethiopian and Allied forces defeated Italian forces. Ethiopia was now again an independent country, and its Emperor Haile Selassie returned to power. Eritrea was a part of Ethiopia before Italy colonized it in 1885, and since then Ethiopia became a landlocked country. After Italy was defeated in 1941 by Allied and Ethiopian forces, Eritrea was liberated from Italian rule, and Ethiopia wanted to make Eritrea a part of the country, especially to maintain its access to the Red Sea for trade activities. Eritrea was under British administration from 1941 till 1952, when a United Nations mandate made it an autonomous part of Ethiopia, with its own constitution and government. Although Eritrea was made an autonomous part of Ethiopia, there was growing discontent within its population for independence and autonomy. An armed conflict began in 1961 to make Eritrea an independent country. The Eritrean independence struggle was led by the Eritrean Liberation Front, ELF, that later became the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF. In 1962, Ethiopia formally annexed Eritrea and made it a part of the country. This led the beginning of the Eritrean War of Independence, that will last until 1991, when EPLF overthrew the military government and led the way for Eritrean independence. In 1993, a referendum was organized, in which Eritrea chose to become an independent nation. The Eritrean War of Independence overlapped the Ethiopian Civil War, that lasted from 1974 to 1991. The Ethiopian Civil War began in 1974, when the Derg, an organization made of Ethiopian military leaders under the leadership of Mengistu Haile Mariam, seized the government and removed the Emperor Haile Selassie from power. The civil war lasted until 1991, when the Derg was overthrown by the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF, in 1991, which led to the independence of Eritrea from Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Civil War left at least 1.4 million people dead, with 1 million of the deaths being related to famine that happened from 1983 to 1985, and the remainder from combat and other violence.